In this episode, I'll talk about transitions, and I'll give you some exercises to do with transitions to help your horse's overall balance, engagement, and nimbleness. So here we go, episode 196, Transitions. Hi, I'm Karen Rohlf, and welcome to Horse Training in Harmony. This podcast is about you making progress with your horse in a way that you both can love. It's about learning how to move and be in harmony. Because yes, you really can develop a horse to be both athletic and happy. When we show up as our best selves for our horses will show up for us. So let's get started. Okay, so today's podcast episode is going to be about techniques. We've done some sort of soft stuff. I know I've sent you back recently to look at past episodes. So I thought I'd give you something meaty, something nuts and boltsy, something you can kind of grab onto and go out and do with your horse. Sound good? All right. Because, I have to say that because with a title like Transitions, we could be talking about life transitions. And I could go on and on and on about that also. But this episode is going to actually be about transitions that you do with your horse when you're riding, or I guess you can do them on the ground too. Now, transitions start out as just, basic communication, right? Can I go? Can I stop? Can I turn? Those are really basic transitions. But as we progress and look at it as a gymnastic exercise, then we want to get a little more deep into really what transitions are and what they're for. So there's three sort of main buckets or main categories of gymnastic exercises, and you've probably heard me talk about these before, but there are flexibility exercises, and those create more suppleness in your horse. There are mobility exercises, and those actually create more straightness in your horse. And then there's collectability exercises, which increase your horse's ability to collect. So it's about engagement. And so exercises fit in the collectability bucket because they really are used to create engagement. It's really important to know why you're doing any exercise. And one reason why to do transitions is to build engagement mentally and physically, because it's really about being ready for anything and ultimately feeling like you could transition from anything to anything else that your horse can do. So you could change what you're transitioning between and how often you do the transitions. There's a lot of dials that you can turn. It's about being creative and coordinated. So transitions are really golden moments with a high gymnastic benefit if you put a focus on doing them well. So let's talk about some of my favorite exercises with transitions. With transitions, as with most movements, there's going to be a first step of kind of getting it done, right? So there's the what and the how. So at first, of course, you want to make sure that your horse understands basically, oh, I'm supposed to walk. Oh, I'm supposed to trot. Oh, I'm supposed to canter. And they do what you're asking them to do. And, that alone takes some time where you're maybe not as particular about exactly the posture that they're in or the precise maintenance of the tempo as you change from one gait to another. And that's okay. So there's that stage, and you definitely want to get that stage feeling easy, feeling clear, like your horse is like, yeah, sure, I know what you asked, and sure, I'll do it. That's important. And then the next stage is when you're going to be looking for some quality. So they're able to do that without any loss of balance, without any major change in tempo, right? When you do transitions between gaits, the rhythm changes, but the tempo is the same. So, for example, if you're riding to a song, you feel like it could be the same song, right? It doesn't change genres from one gait to the other. So that's kind of the first step, or that's the second step, is adding the quality to it. And if you take the time to make sure that there's clarity, willingness, and then also that you can transition between things in Dressage Naturally language, I would say, while staying in the sweet spot from one of these transitions to the other. Now you can really start to play. Now, I know I said that is the logical progression. However, sometimes the exercises I'm going to tell you about are actually a necessary piece to help you get to the part where you get to have the quality. I hope that makes sense. So, of course, your horse has to understand what you're talking about. Do as much as you can playing the sweet spot to get them as smooth as possible. But if along the way you feel like there's a piece missing, that's like, well, I'm trying to find the sweet spot and stay in this nice, beautiful, harmonious balance in the transition, but there's like a big missing piece. Well, so some of the exercises I'm going to talk about today might actually help with that. So, do the logical progression of training and then trust your instincts if you feel like you need to jump ahead a little bit, and see if an exercise can add an ingredient that can help you. So in other words, don't get all perfectionist on me. It's okay to play. Just don't fight and don't struggle. Okay, that was your public service announcement prior to doing transitions. All right, so this is such a huge subject. I could probably make a 6-part, 10-part series on just transitions. But I just will pick out a few things here. So thinking about transitions in general, you're going to get quality transitions as a result, or let's put it this way, your transitions will only be as good as the quality of whatever it is that you're doing prior to the transition, then your timing of when you ask for the transition, how you ask for the transition, how well do you follow the transition, and then the quality of the thing that they're transitioning into. That makes sense, right? So, that sounds like, the obvious, Karen, but this is really good to know, because if you're trying to troubleshoot transitions that feel weird, you can try to pinpoint, all right, well, when exactly do things go wrong? Is it in what's happening right before the transition? Is it your timing? That's a dial you can turn. How are you asking? There's a lot of dials there. And then what are you doing when the horse does do the transition? Are you actually following, or are you getting in the way? And then also, does he feel confident about what you're transitioning into? So sometimes the best way to fix, a trot to walk transition if they're getting sticky is just make sure that they have a good flowing walk that you have to aim for, right? They're not going to be able to flow into something that's already sticky, and it takes you the whole session just to get it unsticky. Then you can't expect it to happen instantaneously on the first stride of the walk during a transition. So I think about those few points. And maybe as you're listening, if you're needing to troubleshoot some of your transitions, you probably already maybe have an idea of like, the trot is really good. He picks up the canter, but it's like right in the moment of the canter depart, then he hollows his back. It's like, maybe it's the aids you're using, right? He understands, but maybe you're using more aids than you need. Maybe he goes, and I've seen this happen a lot, has a big canter, a big jumpy canter, the kind you want, but the rider is used to riding like a little flat Arab or something, and so their body's not actually following, and it feels too big, and you have to actually, supple your body and open your hips and let yourself follow the horse. Anyway, so I hope just knowing, thinking about those pieces of the transition can help. Because a transition is just a split second in time. And so the more you can look at what's happening around the transition, the better. And one little hint too with this, sometimes people will, let's say you're doing a trot to canter. People will get a good trot. I'd be like, yeah, that's a good trot. That's a trot that's really ought to be able to canter. So you're like, that's a good time to ask for the canter. So they start to ask for the canter, and then what you see is, like, as they think about getting ready for the canter, the trot changes a little bit for the worse. And now, because the trot started changing for the worse, they kind of added some aids to kind of try to keep it together. And then on top of that added the canter aids. And then it took a little bit of time between the aids were put on and the horse actually registered that maybe they're supposed to do something. And so in that little bit of time, the rider put a little bit more aids on to kind of help encourage the horse to do the thing that he should have done 3 strides ago. And now by the time the horse actually steps into the canter, it's been, 10 strides of the trot falling apart and things getting worse. So you want to get really holding a microscope up to this moment, and if the horse understands what to do and they're willing to do it, and you want to do the quality, you have to be able to interrupt and go, okay, thank you, but not like that. Let's be able to pat our head and rub our belly at the same time and be able to take care of the gait that you're in, the trot, while you're preparing for the canter. Check that the gait at the trot is still good. Start to ask, is the trot still good? And anywhere along the way, go, oh, but not like that. Keep sort of getting the trot back in the sweet spot so that by the time the horse actually canters, he's ready and he's waiting. All right. And actually, I just want to say right now, like, there are so many good videos in the video classroom about this. So I hope you guys check that out. If you go in the video classroom, you can just search for the word transitions, or there's like a video label that says transitions, and a bunch of videos will come up. I even put a mini series together with that. And there's a few key videos that I'll mention here, but I highly recommend you go taking a peek in there because they're just sitting there waiting for you. Okay. So, actually, speaking of that, there's a video, December 2012, and it's called Transitions with Ovation. And that's a video where I really I'm riding my horse Ovation and I'm narrating exactly what I'm doing, what I'm thinking, as I do transition. So I'll talk about the gait that's happening before. I tell you when I start thinking about doing the next gait. I tell you what I'm feeling. I tell you my decision making of whether I'm going to go for it or not yet and interrupt it. So I think it's such a good video that just really will show you everything that's in my head, and you'll be hearing it. Oh, I have some sort of notification on my computer. Anyway, so check that one out. And that kind of will show you again just what we're talking about. So the next step that you can do, like if you have a bunch of transitions that are going pretty well, is I love to do counting strides. It is such a powerful exercise for people and horses at all stages. So the key is to pick a number of strides that you think is fair, reasonable, and possible for you and your horse. So if you're doing, like, let's say you're pretty good in your working gaits and you can do transitions from the walk to the trot to the canter, and there's no red flags, there's nothing weird happening. Then a favorite exercise that I like to do is give people this number of strides: 4 steps a walk, 8 steps a trot, 8 strides a canter, and then you go back down. 8 strides a trot, 4 strides a walk. And now when you're doing this, I'll suggest that you count like every time the inside front hits the ground. Just so don't try to, do left, right, because then it's gonna be like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you're not gonna be able to breathe. So I usually pick like the inside leg. And so if the horse is walking, it's, they're going left, right, you're going left 1, left 2, left 3. So keep that in mind. So it's not going to be in fast forward. And so, you can start at the walk, take your time getting the walk that you feel like, all right, do I feel ready to trot? I think I do. Test it out a few times. All right, I think I'm ready. And at some point, start counting. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the trot. 1, 2, 3, 4. And you do that for 8 strides. So And then after the 8th stride, then you start doing the canter and you count that inside leading leg. So this is pretty intense to be 4 of the walk, 8 of the trot, 8 of the canter, 8 of the trot, 4 of the walk. So there's your goal. My suggestion is you make it a little bit easier for yourself the first time you do it and just pick 2 gaits. So for a while, you might just practice 4 walk, 8 trot, 4 walk, 8 trot, and practice that until you can find the groove, right? And and then separately, you could do the trot to the canter. So 8 trot, 8 canter, 8 trot, 8 canter, and see if you can find that groove. And then if you feel like I got that groove and I got the other groove, you can put it all together. Go in that cone of concentration, prepare yourself, go in the cone of concentration, and stay at it until you feel like you have gained some coordination, and then stop and take a rest. Don't do this if you're getting fuzzy brain or if things are getting harder. Just stop and go, whew, okay, that was hard. And if it was hard, you go back and you try to figure out, was it the gait itself that's a problem? Was it the timing of when I'm asking? Was it my ability to follow it? Or was it something happening in the gait I was going into? Right? So you want to really look at this and figure out, with the counting, is it that you asked on time, but there was a lag between when you ask and when the horse goes? Or is it your timing that you're actually counting to 8, then starting to ask, and there's no way he could have done it because you just started to ask after the 8th stride and he needed a little bit of warning. So super powerful exercise that I will task you guys with. I can't task you. I will tempt you to play with. And I do hope you shoot me a message on Facebook or something, or make a post and let me know how it goes, because this is pretty cool. Other ways you can make it easier on yourself, because maybe for some of you, like, whoa, that's really intense. You can do whatever strides you want. You could do 8 strides of walk and 12 strides of trot and 12 strides of canter if you want. So use this as a suggestion. But, feel free to vary it, modify it to make it work for you. And, of course, if you're super advanced and you've got an upper level horse that's more engaged and more collected, you could do 2 strides of walk and 4 strides of trot and 4 strides of canter and 4 strides of trot and 2 strides of walk, whatever you like. And actually, that will start bringing us to the second exercise that I wanted to tempt you with. And this other exercise is about more frequent transitions, right? So the counting strides is about precision and really clear synchronous communication. The next thing is about frequent transitions that create an increase in engagement and an increase in readiness. And there may be perhaps a little, I'll say messier in a way, but they're messier in that they can be messy if you know the intention of them is to build really athletic nimbleness, right? So I'd rather be nimble and ready and really quick to change gears rather than like a solid metronome that's like clockwork, but you can't vary the clockwork, right? So in the counting strides, the really rhythmic horses, you can get in a groove and just stay there. With these frequent transitions, it's a little like hotter, a little more like we got to change and then do it again. And oops, surprise, we're going to do this now. So just know that going in, you can reward different moments. So for the really skitchy, super nimble, always, horses that are always changing things, then the counting strides could actually be a nice balancing exercise. And for the, sort of warm bloods who never miss a beat and never get off the metronome, then this frequent transition exercise I'm about to tell you about might actually be harder but beneficial. Okay, so, there's a video in the classroom, February 2024, and it's called Frequent Transitions. And I show playing with a little bit of this idea with one of my horses. And you'll see it actually come up in a lot of in several other transition videos. When I want to increase engagement, I start paying attention to how readily and immediately they can switch gears if I change my mind in the moment. Okay, so the beginning of frequent transitions is just, like it says, just doing them more frequently. Most riders will end up getting in a pattern of how many strides they take to prepare for transition. So often when I start playing with this with students, I might say, if you're on a circle, do 4 transitions on the circle. So if you're cantering, then go to the trot at, you can go to the trot for a few strides and back up to the canter again at 12 o'clock or 12 o'clock and 6 o'clock, or you could do it at 12, 3, 6, and 9 o'clock, where you do a transition and then you just for a few strides later do another transition. Okay, so often when I start doing that, it pretty quickly gets hard. And what's counterintuitive is to make it easier, I actually make it harder. So let's say a horse who, when they're going from the trot to the walk, they tend to plop. They like trotting along, they hit the walk, and then like all the energy just drops and they're stuck. So for that horse, if I said, okay, trot along and do 4 steps of walk and then trot again, that actually might be pretty difficult. And so then what I would do, just to help change the horse's mind and to change the coordination and break the pattern, is I might say, only do 1 stride of walk. Only 1 stride. And you're thinking, but Karen, 4 strides was hard. How are they going to get it done in 1? And I think, yeah, exactly. How are they going to do that? And whatever you figure out to get that to happen, that's the solution. So part of it is changing the horse's mind to not assume that just because there's a walk transition means you're going to walk around for a while. So you want to be able to switch gears. So a what trot, I call it a what trot transition, because you're trotting and then you walk but trot again. So you walk, trot. You think you're going to walk and then you trot again. And it actually can turn into what's called like an almost walk. They know it's going to be a walk. They start to walk, but before they actually take the step of walk, you change your mind and go back to the trot. And it's a really good coordination for the rider, because you're going to need to be not committed to just dialing down your energy and stopping the trot. You're going to need to be able to, change your rhythm into the walk and change it right back to the trot again. And if you're stiff or tight, it's just not going to work. So number 1, you as the rider have to be able to do it and have to be able to feel that it's going to be a walk, and in that moment switch back to trot. And then of course your horse has to be listening to what you're saying. And a lot of times horses are like, no, I feel this aid and then I walk and then I walk for a while. So it's good physically and mentally. And that's why I said in the beginning, transitions are really good for engagement mentally and physically. So it's a big change of timing, but this is such a beneficial exercise. If you trot along and then what trot a few times, the next time when your horse feels that walk aid starting, they may just ask a little question of like, are we really walking? Are we gonna go back to the trot? Or I don't know. And then you go, thank you so much. That is all I wanted, is for you to be with me the whole way through the transition from the beginning, the middle, and the end. And I might change my mind. So it's not a trick. It's just a challenge. And that's why, like, when you do this, be very careful to not feel like you're tricking the horse, that you don't feel like you're walking with the same old aid you always use, and then when they go ahead and walk, that you then punish them and like, hey, get going, you shouldn't have walked. You don't want it to feel like that. It's just a like, oops, never mind. I just think, well, what if I change my mind? Like, oh, never mind, gotta go. Just think of it that way. And, you might have to encourage them a bit, praise them for that. Be like, no, it's my bad. You're fine. And just see if you can do it until you feel them change how they approach the walk. And, with that horse example I gave, that you can approach the walk, start the walk, and they don't just turn off their engine and throw the key out the window. Okay. The other side of that transition is what I call the trot walk. All right, so this is for horses. It's for any horse, but I'll use it as medicine for horses who maybe you pick up the trot and they just they're off. The big, powerful warm blood, or even just a little bit of an impulsive horse, although you have to be careful. If it's too emotional, then stopping and starting them can actually become more emotional. So make sure they're mentally calm, emotionally calm. This is just a little fun puzzle. But for horses who sometimes hop into the trot, or that first trot stride is just they're off and running, I do a trot walk, which is you're walking and then you start to trot, and as soon as they're committed to it, or after one stride, you go back to the walk again. So same thing. Can you bubble them up and simply change your mind? So don't punish them, don't shut them down, don't say, hey, you're wrong, because you did ask for the trot. But you just think of it like, oops, changed my mind. Whoops, not like that. And just go right back to the walk until they're taking that step into the trot more ready to be back to the walk again. So one step. Can you get one step? And along the way to getting one step, sometimes you'll get the almost trot, which for some horses is good enough. Like, whoa, I felt trot energy bubbling up, and they waited and asked me when it's time to go. Then you release your seat into it. That's pure gold. And these two transitions are the secret path to Piaffe, right? Because Piaffe is somewhere between, trotting but not really going anywhere, and ready to come back and ready to go at the same time. So much value in this. And of course, there's the canter version. There's a wa-canter, right? So that's for the horses who, when you're cantering along, if you even think about doing a down transition, they splat. Then you canter, and you can either, trot-canter, or you can wa-canter. You can prepare for a walk or prepare for a trot. And as soon as you feel them committing to it, you just change your mind. Oops, never mind. Back up to it. So you could get the almost canter. You could get the one stride a canter, then switch back again. Or one stride a walk and then back up to the canter. So you can do these backwards. There's a ka-walk. Right? You're walking and you start to canter and then you walk again. That's a ka-walk. a walk, ka-walk. Or you're cantering along and you put in an almost walk or a one stride a walk and then you canter. That's a canter, wa-canter. You get the idea. So you're going along and then you plan this transition where you do it, change your mind. Do it, change your mind. And put some time in between those to re-prepare and think about how you're going to do it next time. Right? So, and again, remember through all of this, it's about your coordination. Can you do it in your body? Then the timing, when are you asking? How are you asking? And then what's the timing between when you ask and when your horse goes? And that's why the counting strides exercise is so valuable to kind of get in that groove before you start doing stuff like this. When you're trying to get better at doing transitions like this with the the counting strides or the frequent transitions with the almost transitions, it might be worth it to kind of trot it out yourself. Feel what it feels in your body to trot along, do one step a walk and then trot, or canter along, do one step a walk and then canter again. And do those combinations on your own. You do it in your house if you don't want anybody to watch you. But I find it super, super helpful to kind of feel the coordination and the change of rhythm. It's a really good thing to visualize also and take that time. And I hadn't really said anything about like where to do these transitions, because it doesn't really matter. You can do them going down the trail. That's actually a great place to try some of these transitions where horses, especially if a horse is really calm and, nicely motivated on the trail, it beats going around in a million circles while you're practicing this. You can do it, in a field, in an arena, down the trail. And then you can also do these things in the middle of other movements, right? So you could do it on a 20-meter circle. You could do it on a 10-meter circle. You could do some of these transitions in the middle of lateral work. I love that. Going across in a nice leg yield, start the leg yield in the walk, see if you can add some trot to it, back to the walk again while maintaining your leg yield. Same thing for any of the lateral movements. Changes of lead through the trot on a 3-loop serpentine, if you see that movement, you can already see how, wow, these exercises we talked about can really help with that, because all that is doing, some frequent transitions on one part of a 20-meter circle and then some frequent transitions on another part of a 20-meter circle. So you can really fold these transitions into anything. And if you think again about why we do transitions to build engagement, think about when you're riding, are there particular movements and moments where your horse loses engagement? When they get a little bit more on the forehand or rushing or something like that. And then you can ask yourself, how could I put some transitions in there to help with that? Even in lengthenings, right? So say you're doing your lengthening across the diagonal, and by the end, your horse often is a little faster and a little more on the forehand than you started. Well, can you go across the diagonal and do some transitions from lengthen back to working trot to lengthening to working trot? Same thing. Do a few strides of each. Do some lengthening and then go do a couple strides of walk and then back to trot and lengthen again. So, think of it as a tool and as medicine to help your horse become more balanced and more engaged. All right. I think that gives you plenty to think about and plenty to play with. So I'm going to leave you to that now. As always, I'd love to hear how it went. Okay. Have fun with it.